man right here, sitting next to me, Dr. Matthew Buckley. He has been teaching me, he has been coaching me for 8 years now, and I have dealt with chronic illness, chronic stomach pain, acne. My daughter was able to reverse Lyme disease. He led me through the process of detoxing my body after a brown recluse almost killed me. And I'll tell you what, those emergency room doctors, they threw prescriptions of all sorts at me. They gave me 3 antibiotics without knowing that I no longer had bacteria in my blood. They gave me antifungals. Dr. Buckley knew what I needed to do. Thank you, doctor. So if you guys want to begin a journey, I would like for you to sit back, get out your notebook, and start taking notes, because this man knows what's going on. For those of you writing down websites, KinseyMindBody.com is his URL, and it's I before E except after C and in Kinsey, right? KinseyMindBody.com. Please, let's give a warm welcome to my personal mentor, doctor, and hero, Dr. Matthew Buckley.
I really appreciate that. And it's hard to follow up Del Bigtree. I mean, I can't match that guy's energy at all. But what I'm going to talk about is very much related to the issue of vaccines too. It's the core of what I'm going to talk about really kind of sets the stage for the pro-inflammatory insult that comes from vaccines. So just a little bit about me. I got into the field of healthcare because I had my own health complaints that were being unaddressed by conventional medicine. Specifically, I was dealing with chronic fatigue, widespread aches and pains at a young age, in my late teens, early 20s. Ended up finding my way into chiropractic school because I found that chiropractic and massage therapy offered me a little bit of benefit. And I figured if I was going to get myself out of the situation, I was going to have to do it myself. So when I got into chiropractic, I didn't know that there were all these different techniques for the chiropractic. I got exposed to something called applied kinesiology, which is a non-invasive diagnostic system. And through that, I ended up figuring out that I ultimately had Lyme disease. And as I ended up working my way through that, there were really like core issues that really paid the most benefit. And the biggest was clearing up the gut. Clearing up the gut of infections, of toxins, and that ended up changing my energy, it changed my mood, I slept better, had better focus, everything seemed to improve. And I applied that approach to everybody that came in to see me. I've been practicing since 2002. And, you know, as I went on, I was like, well, there's got to be a metabolic, immunological reason to explain the phenomenon of what's happening when we're clearing up these infections and this toxicity. And that's really what this talk is about. So, you know the gist is to give you a better understanding of the relationship between the gut and the brain, and to help you to prevent the chronic illnesses of neurodegeneration, specifically Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, ALS. They all have a common denominator. That common denominator is inflammation. Now, this is from 2004 Time magazine. I mean, absolutely, the research shows very clearly that all these big killers of us are inflammatory issues. Well, what people don't always realize is that inflammation isn't just pain, but inflammation can be fatigue. It can be brain fog. I mean, who doesn't experience brain fog from time to time? I mean, these are all signs that we're dealing with inflammation in our system. Forgetfulness, non-situational anxiety, non-situational depression, vision issues, insomnia, those are all inflammatory issues. So these are the top 10 causes of death, and everything on there has inflammation as a driver too, with the exception of accidents. Although you could make a case that a subset of accidents is actually a byproduct of inflammation, which is affecting cognition. So as I went and I was trying to figure out, well, what's the explanation for why we clear up the gut, everything seems to improve, it really boils down to this research called microglial activation. And microglial activation is a process by which the resident immune cells in your nervous system shift into a pro-inflammatory state. Okay? They exist in two different states. It's surveillance or repair, which is what you want, or pro-inflammatory degradation of the nervous system. Okay? So when you're interfacing with the conventional system, generally they're going to do some blood work on you. What you have to understand with the blood work is that the values that they're looking at, they're going to take between 100 and 200 patients, and they're going to look at that value, that unit, and they're going to cut off the lower 5% and the upper 5%. As long as you fall within that range between there, you're going to be told that you're normal and therefore healthy. So anytime you interface with that system and you're doing the standard blood work and your lab work is coming back and they're telling you everything looks great, it doesn't mean much, honestly. But there are doctors that are now starting to use more functional, more narrow parameters, trying to compare what your chemistry is looking like to more functional levels. And that's a branch of healthcare that's calling themselves functional medical doctors. So keep that in mind. So looking at health and degeneration, a lot of people are in the mindset, well, it's just my genes, you know. But the reality is that what the research shows is that this was a study where they took two genetically identical mice that were living in the same environment, eating the same food, which was contaminated with BPA, which is a toxic endocrine disruptor. And the fat one here on the left is clearly showing its genetic potential, whereas the other one is not. And the difference is that it was given nutrients which aid in the detoxification of things that are coming into the system. Point being is that your nutrient status goes a long way towards influencing the expression of your genetics. So this is a study that goes back to 2009 where they're looking at 10 randomly sampled babies, the blood for the umbilical cord, and 134 had cancer-causing substances in there. 151 agents caused birth defects. 154 chemicals were endocrine disruptors. 186 caused infertility. 130 affected the immune system. 158 were neurotoxins. Point being, everybody's coming into the world toxic right now. I mean, you just can't escape it. So if you're going to not be a victim, you have to be proactive with your health. And you're not going to get that just from diet alone. So the medical approach to dealing with a lot of these problems is, as they started to do the research, we're starting to pick up on, well, you know, it looks like Alzheimer's disease is actually associated with this particular bacteria. You know, and they're talking about, well, maybe we need a vaccine against that. Or, you know, they're talking about broad-spectrum antibiotics and that sort of thing. It's insane. The holistic way of looking at this, which I would try and get you to comprehend, is that the medical model would look at a problem in a neighborhood that has mosquitoes and where there's a swamp, and they say, well, let's just spray insecticide and get rid of those mosquitoes. Where a holistic solution would be, you know what, we could drain that swamp, and I think that would have a better end result of dealing with that mosquito problem. So that's the mindset that you want to look at your health. So this new model this is what I work with, is recognizing that we all have a toxic body burden. Our genetic profile plays some role. We also have an infectious burden. You know, a lot of people think, well, you know, do I have an infection? Do I not? You all have infections. It just may not be at an acute stage. And those infections are causing problems, at least at the cellular level. Unresolved mental and emotional stressors are big, big drivers of our health problems. And you can take an inventory of yourself, whether or not you have these, by simply recalling. If you can think about anything in your past that brings up an emotional charge, that's an emotional trauma that is acting like an energetic vampire in your system. When you have that, we believe that the enzymes aren't acting efficiently within the organs that those emotions are related to, and therefore the toxins are accumulated, infections are coming in, and it's increasing the inflammation. So you want to find the tools and modalities. There's a number of them. There's one called the emotion code. That's a strategy for dealing with it. EFT is another one that's effective for dealing with that stuff. EMDR is another one. But the emotional component is a huge, huge component to all of our health. Okay, obviously nutrient status and diet play a big role, and the environment is becoming increasingly a bigger and bigger issue, particularly with the rollout of wireless technology. People live next to a cell phone tower, that's a problem. So what I'm going to talk about, it's kind of heavy stuff to really consider because it's almost inescapable that that you can avoid it because it's everywhere. And as I talk about this, I want you to understand that I'm talking about one level to who and what we are. And it's important to know, but it's also important not to be victimized by it, okay? Because the more you actually start thinking about it, it'll create some anger. And that will cause more problems. So it's good to be aware, it's good to take steps to intervene, but realize that you're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that ultimately your spirit is guiding. It's aiming to guide everything that's happening within your body. And the closer you get in attunement with that reality, the less this biochemical poisoning has its effect upon your system. So know that, okay? So what I'm going to talk about, I believe, is a cornerstone to the depopulation agenda. I mean, I think pretty much everybody in here would probably agree that might be going on at least, okay? I'm 100% certain it's going on, okay? Okay, and I'm talking about Roundup toxicity, okay? The bulk of the staple crops right now, they're being genetically modified to become tolerant to the herbicide Roundup. Okay, the base molecule within Roundup is a patented antibiotic. And what that does, just on that alone, it affects us in a number of ways, but I'm going to focus primarily on the effects it has on the gut microbiome. When that comes into the system and ends up altering your gut microbiome, which I'll get here in a second, I just want to show you, this is what Roundup was introduced, actually glyphosate was introduced for use in 1974, and it's been on a steady increase really since 1992 when the genetically modified crops came into effect. So this map, the darker areas, is just showing the use of Roundup. And it's increasing, this is in 2002. And this is in 2012. Now, the significance here is that the Roundup, it's water soluble, and so it gets carried up along with the water when it rains, right? And you can see how it's pretty dense through the Midwest. All that ends up draining into the Mississippi. So it's actually close to probably about 2 billion kilograms used in the U.S. since 1974, and probably closer to 10 billion used globally. So this is a map that's just showing the cancer clusters from 2002 to 2006. And the dark black areas are the denser areas. And I don't think it's a coincidence that all this water soluble from the Midwest is working its way down into the southern states, specifically through Louisiana, and increasing the amount of cancer down there. So this is a 2018 study where they're just looking at, well, how much of the food is actually contaminated with Roundup. They found that 36% of their samples were contaminated with Roundup, 47% of the beans, peas, lentils, chickpeas, soy had the residue, 31% infant formula did. So how did our government deal with the problem of Roundup toxicity? Well, in 1996, we had 6 parts per million on some soybeans, and they increased the tolerance level to 20 parts per million. This is a graph showing Alzheimer's disease in its relationship to Roundup and the proliferation of genetically engineered crops. There's a pretty strong correlation between the two. Same with autism. So, as I said, the base molecule within Roundup is a patented antibiotic, and as an antibiotic, it's going to alter your gut ecology. And what it tends to do is it ends up killing the beneficial bacteria in your gut, leaving you more prone to the bad guys actually proliferating. The end result of that is what I call ghetto gut. So as these bad guys proliferate, because your gut is effectively your immune system, between 70 and 80% of your immune system is found in your gut. So think about it. If you're trying to depopulate the planet, what part of the human body would you most want to disrupt? You want to disrupt the immune system. So you give it to people in a way that they're not going to necessarily receive. They're going to eat it every day. It's going to slowly degrade the immune system, lead to persistent, ongoing, low-level inflammation, just waiting for the ignition from a potently pro-inflammatory agent like vaccines. So anyway, as those bad guys end up proliferating within the gut, they're breaking down the lining of the intestines and into something called leaky gut. Has everybody heard of leaky gut? Okay. So you have these what are called tight junctions that hold the cells, all the cells together. And one thing the environment does is it'll end up breaking apart those tight junctions. When that happens, there's a protein that increases within the body called zonulin. Zonulin will tend to decrease the permeability within the blood as well. So as you have these pathogens that are in your gut, they translocate into the blood, and now they can go circulate around. They'll induce inflammation, but if your system is, overwhelmed sufficiently enough, some of those microbes are going to find their way in the nervous system, and that's going to also induce more inflammation in there. When you have leaky gut also, this is a prime driver of autoimmunity. It will drive a lot of allergy reactions. When the barrier is broken like that, you're having antigens get into the bloodstream, and the body says, well, that shouldn't be there. And so it creates an immune system response to it. And so if you're dealing with allergies or sensitivities, you'll probably get the most benefit by figuring out ways to clean up your gut. Okay? But you can't really effectively clean up the gut by just taking probiotics. Yeah, that can have some benefit, but remember, if the environment is conducive towards the pathogens growing, it's going to maintain those pathogens in the system. Actually, let me back up just a little bit. So anyway, I just threw this. This was a study that just came out here not too long ago, and it was just showing that as the zonulin, that protein that increases with leaky gut, it decreases the permeability within the nervous system. But it also shows that these two cytokines, which are immune messenger molecules, are kind of like the hormones of the immune system. When they go up, they also decrease the permeability within the nervous system. Now, that's interferon gamma and interleukin 17A. And those happen to be the two primary cytokines that are induced by vaccines. So you just imagine, everybody that's getting vaccinated, we all have a little bit of low-level inflammation going on in your system. So just imagine, just throwing a little gasoline on it in the form of a vaccine. So again, this goes back to the induction of the microglia going to the pro-inflammatory state. You want them in an anti-inflammatory state, but these are the things. It's the interferon gamma, interleukin 17, and the lipopolysaccharide, which will shift it on over into that pro-inflammatory state. And how you get that is largely through the bad guys proliferating within your gut. So this is a study just came out like a week ago, and the conclusion, looking at the microbiome, what did the study show? This is like a study of studies. And so our results provide population scale evidence for microbiome links to mental health, if there's not any doubt. I mean, the research for this stuff is overwhelming right now. So when those microglia go into this pro-inflammatory state, they secrete large amounts of this excitatory neurotransmitter called glutamate. If you guys ever heard of MSG is a mimicker of glutamate, okay? Glutamate's the primary excitatory neurotransmitter within the body. It will induce the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight system. If you're dealing with anxiety or dealing with depression, they're commonly, you go to the medical doctor and say, well, since you have anxiety, we'll give you some Xanax, we'll give you some Valium, we'll give you Ambien. Those are all GABA agonists, okay? There's gabapentin is another commonly prescribed one. They're all working to increase the expression of GABA. Okay, GABA is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, but glutamate and GABA need to be kept in a particular balance. So the pharmaceutical industry, they absolutely know that this stuff's going on, and what they're doing is that they want to make sure that you're a repeat customer. So they're going to keep you on the GABA expression, try and boost the GABA, neglecting what's happening. Well, why is the glutamate so high to begin with? Well, it's high because you have persistent inflammation going on, and you got issues fundamentally within your gut most of the time. So these are some of the symptoms of excess glutamate. You have an increased sensitivity to pain, activation of fight or flight, breaks down the brain cells, impedes healing, it alters your mood. So again, what are we going to do about this problem of Roundup? What are we going to do with the swamp that's setting the stage for these bad guys to come on in? Well, in working with people, I've recognized that there's a couple things that are really, really effective at removing Roundup. And if anybody's to ask me, well, if there's one supplement you would recommend, what would it be? It'd be humic acid. Okay, and not all humic acid is created equal, so keep that in mind, because you'll find some that's cheaper than others. But if you stick with what I'm talking to you about, and I have no financial ties to this company, it works, okay? And sometimes some people are pretty sensitive to it. When they start to take it, it can really change the gut ecology pretty quickly, and you might have some gastrointestinal upset as it's going through those changes. So you might want to kind of go on a slow build-up, but don't necessarily think that because you do experience some symptoms, that as you do take it, that it's all bad. It's just you have to understand the process of detoxification and work your way into it. So the two products, there's a company called Restore. They're both humic acid. Mother Earth Labs, the Gift, is also a humic acid product. They're both fantastic. There's also another product called Shilajit, but I don't have it listed on the slide right now, that's purported to be effective at removing it as well. So you might want to look at that, but I haven't worked with it enough to say that, yes, it does work. But these two, 100% certain that they do. Okay, so not only does it pull out Roundup, it ends up increasing glutathione within cells, helps repair the tight junctions, helps accumulate out toxic metals. It's wonderful stuff. So what else do you do? You're working on pulling out that Roundup, and you want to colonize with some of the good guys, but how do you keep them in? And one of the best things you can do to help keep the good guys in and to get that inflammation down is get the bacteria that produce the substance, a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate, to start producing within your body. Okay, and there's these prebiotics called inulin and resistant starch. If you start taking that on in, it helps to feed the beneficial bacteria, which produces that butyrate. And again, butyrate has been shown to decrease brain inflammation as well as gut inflammation. Butyrate is the preferred fuel of the colon. So in summary, you want to eat organic, supplement with good humic acid-based products. I'm not really going to get into it today. I know on the sheet that was saying I was going to talk about parasites, but there was a little miscommunication there. But well, the gist is this, okay? So parasites are a huge problem, and if you neglect this issue of the Roundup, you'll never get past the parasite problem. So you have to understand this first to begin, okay? I'm working on clearing out those pathogens. It really should be customized. There's different things you can do, like off the shelf that might be beneficial. But really, that should be tried on a case-by-case basis. And help rebuild the gut ecology with pro and prebiotics. There's a little information about me and how to find me. I want to share a little story. I got a friend who's a chiropractor, and he was telling me about this patient that he'd been working with for a while who was working on an application for a phone. He said it was going to be like a 5-hour application, just be able to, scan the food and give you some sort of readout about the parts per million concentration of Roundup, and I think a few other things. And so the story goes is that this guy, as he was getting close to finishing up his project, this guy started showing up around his office. And then he started showing up around his home. And then finally he approached him and he told him, this is what I said, there's no reason for my friend to lie. So he said, you've been identified as a level 14 threat of the United States government. If you disappear, we might let you live. That's what he said. So take that for what it's worth, but this is such a huge issue that I'm certain that it is part of the depopulation agenda. There's steps you can do right now to minimize the impact that that's doing to you, because it is affecting everyone. And absolutely don't get vaccines, which amplify all that other information that comes along with it. So that concludes my talk. Are there any questions? So when you do humic acid, okay. So there's a question about humic versus folic acid. When you take the humic acid-based products, there's actually folic acid that comes along with it. Okay, and folic acid is great stuff. Folic acid increases the zeta potential on your red blood cells to keep them from clumping on up, which is really important. It has anti-cancer properties, it's improved, been shown to clean the cell receptors within the body. It's fabulous stuff. Okay. Next question.
I have two specific questions. The first one is, if parasitical elite are responsible for putting all these potions and poisons out into the food, how are they not being affected by it as well?
How are people not being affected by it if they're spreading it all around?
How are they not affected by it if they're the ones responsible for putting it all out there?
Well, I mean, if you look at the elite, I mean, most of the elite are smart enough to actually eat organic, right? So they're not going to eat the day-to-day genetically modified food to begin, So, but I don't think everybody within government is like in on this plan. Obviously, I think that there's a select few that are aware of what's going on, and they're just kind of, making sure that kind of the system keeps going the way that they want it to go.
My next question is regarding mucus. If you wake up in the morning, you have a lot of mucus. What does that mean? Is that connected to your gut, or is that just?
It tends to be connected to your gut. Yeah, it's an indication that you're having immune activation, which is producing the mucus. Type of immune reaction.
What's the best medicine for that?
Cut out dairy, because it's probably, that's the most likely culprit right off the bat.
Okay, and if you're not consuming dairy, you still have it?
And then you got to identify this. There's probably other pathogens that could be in play, or other foods that could be in play. That's where I would look.
Out of curiosity, with the organics, what percent do you think are sprayed with lead?
I don't know. The question was what percent of organic foods are actually sprayed and contaminated? I don't know. It's some for sure. It's not as much as the conventional. So, like I said, there's no escaping it. It's out there. Know that it's there. Work on cleaning it up. How long does it stay in the soil? Well, it's water soluble, so it should, it should make its way out of there at some point. Yeah, into the ground, into your groundwater,
It's at least a 4-year period to be certified organic for your land. So I would imagine it's at least 4 years, because you have to stop using everything for at least 4 years and test every year.
Okay, saying it takes at least 4 years for you to get certified organic land. So you're surmising that it would require, it's probably at least 4 years for it to go away.
How long will it stay in your body if you're not detoxifying?
Good question. I really don't know. Another.
I've been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. Is this related or the same thing? Or?
Yeah. So the question is any of this related to irritable bowel? It's absolutely related to irritable bowel because irritable bowel is going to have a relationship to the microbiome, for sure. There's commonly like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth that's tied into irritable bowel. But I mean, you can't clear that up without looking at a foundational issue, which is kind of shaping the terrain. Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you for coming in and speaking pretty openly about not just health issues, but the underlying stuff that's going on. But what I was wondering if you can speak to a little bit is, especially healing the immune system, because it seems like even damaging or infiltrating the gut really has long-term effects, especially as you say, which are activated by vaccinations. But Sherry Tenpenny was here a couple of days ago and spoke about, in her opinion, once you're vaccinated, you can't be unvaccinated. In other words, that there's some longer-term effects on pro-inflammatory response and things of that nature. So what kinds of things do you recommend doing post, after addressing the gut, after reestablishing a healthy microbiome, in order to help calm the immune system and reestablish normal functioning?
Well, that's really it. I mean, addressing the gut is foundational to it all, and working on clearing out the metals. I mean, you're looking at immune tolerance. You're looking at, well, what are T regulatory cells? And the thing that helps to boost up T regulatory cells is the level of intracellular glutathione. So if your glutathione status is replete, then your T regulatory cells are more prone to functioning properly. So, you got to look at, well, not just Roundup. I mean, what are toxic metals? I mean, there's a number of factors that go into play here that have to be addressed, but you're going to get the most mileage in terms of working on your body by cleaning up your gut. So, when you're asking, well, what else can I do? I mean, it would really require, working with a pro, help it get dialed in.
What are some things you can do to objectively measure the health of the gut?
So there's different tests. There's a microbiome test that's Great Plains Laboratory has a stool analysis that can give you a readout of different microbes that are in there. Genova is another functional lab test that can give you some data on that as well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of those. I'm not totally opposed to them, but they're pretty expensive, and they tend to miss parasites. I mean, there's the whole issue of parasite diagnosis is the whole talk in and of itself. I mean, false negatives with parasites are extremely common. I've had patients that have actually taken worms that are clearly worms and put it in a stool sample and sent it off to the lab, and it came back no parasites. And it's not just me that says that. I know other doctors that have had the same thing. So it's a head scratcher. And the other thing, so with the parasites is that if they're missing the parasites and you're still looking at the microbiome, you're like, oh, I've got this bacteria and that bacteria dominant, and I want to work on shifting that. Well, the significance of the parasites are able to persist in your system because they modulate your immune system. And as they do that, they're secreting chemicals, which is altering your gut ecology too. So you have to get on top of that. And unfortunately, it really requires alternative testing. I mean, I don't think I would be alive. In fact, I'm quite certain I wouldn't be alive without alternative testing. And to some people, it's voodoo, but healing is a science and an art. And so there are people that do some of these alternative methods, and they do them well, and there's other people that don't do them so well. And the ones that don't do them so well make some of us look not so good. So keep that in mind.
What interferes with the absorption of humic acid?
What interferes with the absorption of humic acid?
Yes.
That's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, all I know is that when I give it to people, I can see clear evidence that the Roundup is clearing out of their system and their microbiome is shifting.
You increase butyrate directly.
Butyrate, how do you increase it directly? I mean, you can take butyrate as a supplement, but the best thing to do is really to cause the bacteria in your system to start producing more and more. There's certain strains of bacteria that actually will produce it. And you probably have some of those in there. If you just start consuming resistant starch or inulin, it'll tend to actually boost up that butyrate-producing bacteria in your system. Resistant starch. Just enter that into Google, and you'll find all kinds of information on there about resistant starch and what to do about it.
Yes, would you recommend taking regular IV supplementation of glutathione to boost the immune system?
I mean, at a certain point, that's not a bad idea. I don't necessarily go there. I mean, you got to be a little bit careful with some of the issues of like mercury. I mean, glutathione is rich in sulfur, and it can grab onto mercury and just move it from one area to another. And
so there's some dangers to doing that?
There can be. I don't think you hear too many people having too many adverse reactions to it, but
If you have high levels of mercury?
If you have high levels of mercury, yeah. Yeah, definitely get tested on mercury.
Are you able to work long distance with people?
I do work long distance with people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what I found, I'm in the Seattle area. There are a lot of people, good people who have pieces, but they don't thread it all together.
All right. Well, in the Seattle area is Dietrich Klinghart's clinic, the Sophia Institute, and he's one of the best out there. He certainly understands all this.
Okay, thank you.
What happens with products from the app?
Oh, so the last we heard is that he had moved to his parents' ranch and was living in a tent somewhere in Texas, and he woke up one morning to find that the hoses in his car were all cut. Just, apparently just to give him, let him know, hey, we know where you're at. One more? Yeah.
Do you recommend doing a colonic for clearing out parasites?
Yeah, a colonic can be beneficial for sure. I mean, it's generally not sufficient to clear them out by themselves, but it's a part of it, right? So you take some antiparasitics and along with doing that, I mean, that's a good adjunctive strategy to use in your detox. Works on tapeworms, but it's not really effective on many of the other parasites. Sorry. I'll answer questions out in the hall if you guys have any other questions.
Outside. Let's get a round of applause for that.
Anarchapulco, it's so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't wanna miss it. You should roll through, talking politics to health and self-improvement to investing. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect. All about growth, way more than a conference. This is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.